Alrighty. Carol has asked me to do the meeting tonight, so I will put my best foot forward and try to see if I can get it done. This is a regular meeting of the Board of Directors of the 29 Palms Water District, July 24th, 2024 at 4 p.m. This meeting may be viewed on the district's website at www.29palmswater.net. The board reserves the right to discuss only or take action on any item on the agenda. Please make sure all your cell phones are silenced. It's a quarter charge if it's not, and put in that jar right over there. Cindy, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Director Coghill?
Here.
Director Arthur?
Here.
Director Giannini?
Here.
Director Woods?
Here.
And Director Leeser is absent.
All right, the next item is the Pledge of Allegiance. Gary, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Ready? Again.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Gary. All right, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
There are none.
None. All right. Public comments. If you haven't already done so, well, there's no public here, I'm not going to do it. We're going to jump right into item 1, approval of the 29 Palms Water District Local Hazard Mitigation Plan. John Ladger?
Good afternoon, Board President and members of the board. This afternoon, there will be a presentation of the 29 Palms Local Hazard Mitigation Plan 2024. Making the presentation today is the district's emergency manager, Gary Sturdivant. Gary Sturdivant has been a member of working with our district for 10 years. And at the end, we'll have discussion, and we would be looking for an approval for any FEMA corrections at the end. But Gary's going to give the presentation and then open it up for discussion before approval.
Hi.
Hi,
Good
Gary.
afternoon.
Yep.
Afternoon, it's not evening yet. Anyway, thank you. I'm glad to be here. And I've done the update on the district's hazard mitigation plan. And there was a lot of changes to this year's update. It's updated every 5 years. But in June of last year, FEMA decided in their wisdom to make a bunch of changes. So they're reflected in this document now.
Okay.
The first one the changes were so rigid, the first one that we did, we were the very first agency that got a hazard mitigation plan approved in the state of California for a special district after those changes.
Really?
It was difficult too. But
Congratulations.
yeah, it was fantastic. You know, and when we finally got it approved, because it kept coming back to us. Oh, we make changes. Oh, we need some more. And, 14 times. I thought, oh my gosh, I've never had one come back 14 times.
Wow.
Anyway, what a hazard mitigation plan does is identifies the natural hazards faced by this agency and how it affects the water system. We look at those and can we mitigate those natural hazards from happening in the future. And we can write grants on the hazard mitigation plan on things that are identified and things that aren't identified in the hazard mitigation plan. So if you have one in place approved by Cal OES and FEMA, you're golden for grants, for FEMA grants. Those grants go out every year. There are hazard mitigation grants, flooding grants. They have them broken down into different areas. Building resilient infrastructure communities, which is BRIC, and those are all some of the things that we can get for this agency. We did get one on the
Cal OES.
from Cal OES, well, from FEMA, but we did get one for one of the reservoirs that has a bunch of sloughing off. But then it was like, what do we do with it? So Ray wasn't prepared at the time, and neither was I, what we were going to have to do with that. So we kind of turned it back, and then there was another one that was between this agency and Joshua Basin Water District that was to run a 1-mile pipeline next to the highway and connect 29 Palms to Joshua Basin. In an emergency, you could move water back and forth. So Then Caltrans got involved in it and wanted the whole 1 mile in concrete. The whole pipeline wanted it encased in concrete. Well, that shot the cost through the roof. So that was scrapped too. But now we're trying to look at ones that can be more beneficial to this agency in particular. Joshua Basin has theirs approved by Cal OES. He's doing theirs and this one about the same time. And Cal OES has approved it and is at FEMA. It should be back from FEMA approved within the next couple of weeks. Yours has already been submitted to Cal OES. Cal OES and FEMA always want changes, always. It may be a word, so I don't like that sentence, or something like that, but, we play the game. It doesn't take any of your staff time, we just make those changes and proceed. So, is there any questions at all about the hazard mitigation plan?
No, but I am glad to hear, I have no questions, but I'm glad to hear that we did not have that interconnection with the Joshua Tree Water District.
Yeah, I remember.
Because I was against it from the very beginning.
Yes, I remember.
But I didn't realize that it was a requirement and then everything else.
Well, that's the only thing that I've always said about this agency is if you lost electricity for a long period of time and ran out of fuel, which you're isolated, so that's easy to do, how else would you get water?
Yeah,
How are you going to get water? You're not connected to anybody else.
yeah, just an emergency.
Joshua Basin is connected to Yucca Valley, to High Desert, to Marina West, to
Yes.
Bighorn Desert View, and I think they have 2 connections with High Desert Water. I think there's 2. And I know there's one with between High Desert Water and Bighorn Desert View, and there's one between Joshua Basin and Bighorn.
Questions, Amy?
On page 53 of the plan, Gary, 5.7 was your capabilities assessment. The very last item there, number 6, was to broaden staff training. Can you talk a little bit about the actual hazard mitigation training that our Tom's Water District staff participates in? And then also the plan should continue to, it says the plan should continue to educate grades K-12 in local schools, and I'm wondering if there's anything that we can do with that as well inside the school district.
We have to have outreach in a hazard mitigation plan. We're showing the district is outreaching to the community or to the school district. This is always an easier way for the district to interact with the schools, especially elementary school and junior high schools, of saving water, preparing for emergencies. So that hasn't been drafted yet. But also there was another law that went into effect 5 years ago. It's called the American Water Infrastructure Act of 2018. And that is mandating by that act, and you've gone through this once in 2019, I believe it was. We did we call it AWIA, but for short. Anyway, in that also, it reflects on your hazard mitigation plan, your resiliency, and the communications, cybersecurity, and also emergency response. You would be amazed at the agencies that do not have emergency response plans in place. And it's a requirement by the federal government, by USEPA. So in the OEA, it made it more of a law of what's going to be happening. And this OEA is coming up. I think next year for this agency is going to be very heavy on cybersecurity. Very heavy.
So the participation of our TPWD employees, it says they have experience with past hazard mitigation and hazard planning, but what is the plan for them to continually train toward that?
The planning is the training is FEMA training is requirements. ICS 100, 700, 300, 400, which is 300 and 400 is more for people that would work in your emergency operations center, and the 100, 700 is for the base employee. All employees should have 100, 700 because when you open an EOC and start changing everything, they don't know what's going on. And that's not fair, you know, for them not to know what's going on, because everything changes about this organization when you go into open an emergency operations center. So the 100, 700 are the base that have to be done to water agencies. The 300, 400 is what has to be done to management, or people that would work in your EOC. And the EOC is an emergency operations center. So there's certain ways that you have to function, that this agency has to function, and it has to do its paperwork correctly. That's another reason I'm here too, is, and I'm a retainer, is when something really happens, I can be here. You know, and at least guide you on paperwork, how to submit paperwork, because FEMA is very, very picky. You know, if it's not on their form, they just push it back across the table. You know, when I first started, my first one was East Valley Water, and I was trial by fire because the old fire started the week I started as emergency manager. And so that was burnt over 4,000 homes down in the city of San Bernardino, but burned off the face of the San Bernardino Mountains. And it was, everybody was laughing at me, trial by fire. You know, well, I did lots of grants, I did lots of expenditures for the emergency, and the city of San Bernardino did the same thing. And when we were audited at the end, East Valley paid nothing back, zero. San Bernardino paid $2 million back to the federal government. Because things weren't done right. So you've got to make sure your T's are crossed, your I's are dotted, and you know, if you hand a timesheet to FEMA that is this agency's timesheet, and you say, here's all the time that was spent on the disaster, they push it right back there across the table at you and say, where's our timesheet? So you have to do both. You're getting paid by one, but you're going to get reimbursed by FEMA, by another one. So those are the things that really come to roost when you haven't done your preparation. And pictures. You know, I bark at the staff all the time. Pictures. Get pictures. Act like it's a presidential declaration. Always. So, any questions?
Michael, any questions? Carol, any questions?
I didn't get my question answered.
Oh, I'm
What-
sorry, Amy.
What is the training that our employees get?
Oh, it's the 100, 700, which
Okay,
is
that doesn't
FEMA.
make, that doesn't
Okay,
get
that's
into
FEMA training.
what I just want to know how often our people get
That
training
is, as
and who
new
does
people
that.
come in, and once they've had training every 3 years,
Okay.
they also must do a tabletop exercise on an emergency once a year, and once in the 5-year period, they have to do what's called a functional exercise.
Okay. That's what I wanted.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. That's answered my question.
And Director Woods, we are working on doing a full tabletop with everyone. As new employees come in, Gary is aware that we do 100, 700 training. We probably do it twice a year, depending on how many new employees there are, but usually once a year if we stay pretty consistent. And right now, I believe everyone here, the newer employees, are 100, 700 trained. So full tabletop exercises are all day, very long. We break down our EOC. We get into the different groups, finance, EOC manager. We just get into the 5 breakdowns, and we truly go through the packet, the emergency response book, and how do we do a functioning exercise as a group here. So it's important
And that
training.
happens once a year, you said? Or just as new people come on?
No,
New
the
people don't
table.
get to 100, 700, when new people come in.
Right, and does management receive different training than
The
field employees?
The 300, 400.
Okay, the 300.
And that happens every 3 years.
Every
if
3
they haven't
years.
had it.
Okay.
A refresher is done every 3 years.
Okay,
A refresher is done every 3 years on the 100, 700.
okay.
I do this agency, Joshua Basin, and High Desert all at the same time.
And when you say a tabletop training, that would kind of be like,
Simulated.
yes, that, I'm sorry, that's like the
Simulated
word where you would basically work out an emergency.
Yeah, Gary sets up a scenario. The scenario is then played out with how we would open our EOC, who's the director, It even is pretty entailed where we also go into media training, what not to say to the media, so just the different circumstances we're in as far as emergency management is concerned. At times, they're not the funnest trainings because we get very frustrated. I think Gary purposely gets us frustrated to know that in those times of emergency, we are going to be frustrated. So we've had that breakdown. I know that I've been involved even with where we go to Bighorn Water Agency and we all meet there and then break into different EOCs, which is a little hard because then you have your top people trying to break down into a full functioning exercise. So we've really, this next one, I think we're concentrating on 29 doing their own. Like let's us concentrate on where we're at and be very functional to what we're doing, whether it's a flood or an earthquake, because we've had some radical tabletops where we're just kind of overwhelmed at times. But I think that's what the tabletops get you to do in those situations and how you're going to react and calm back down and break down into your groups and how maintenance is going to work with finance, is going to work with the EOC director.
So work together. Everybody has to work together and help your head. You know, and I don't use it as a fail. They didn't do it correctly. If you have time, sometimes look at your emergency response plan, and the scenarios are broken down in the emergency response plan, from a sick employee to a terrorist event. You know, whether it has biologicals in it, you know, chemical based or non-chemical based, and it gives you a cheat sheet, basically. I call it. This is what you need to think about. Did you do these things? If you didn't do these things, you know, in the heat of the moment, I worked in the state operations center. I worked in the county operations center, and it is chaos. That was absolutely chaos. And then all of a sudden, it all
Organized
comes down.
chaos.
And everybody goes, wow, it's quiet in here. Then all of a sudden, it's all chaos again.
And I bet when they do the post write-up of training, what went wrong, what went right, the number one consideration for what went wrong is communications.
Always.
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 It's been my experience.
Issue is communications.
Right.
Biggest issue, always. I haven't seen a tabletop exercise that didn't have problems with communication.
And even Director Woods, just so, I mean, breaking into this a little bit, the directors also have a role in emergency management, and it's pretty much be here and get us the money we need to do those. So some of that training does also come down and trickle down to the board members. We don't need people in the media at the board level. We would have a designated news, press person, media person. So it is pretty entailed where you go, man, I didn't think of these until we started doing these tabletop exercises. So they're really good. Sometimes we feel like they're so in depth, we're a little frustrated with the fact that you got to work your way through it. And again, I will agree with the Director Coghill. It's communication breakdowns, and we break down in communication even in those exercises where Gary rings that bell for us to get, hey, we gotta get focused back. Okay. Yeah. So they're good. They're good to take place here at the district and be a part of.
Yes.
Does that answer your question, Amy?
It does, thank
Okay.
you.
I have a question for you, but it's not the same topic we've just been discussing. Let's say this item is golden with the areas that it needs to be golden in, which we can then apply for grants and hopefully get some grants. I'm going to use a scenario, just straight up scenario.
Sure.
What if 3 agencies have the same issue and the same goal to correct a certain situation in their community in the event of let's just use floods since it's getting ready to rain again. Let's just say our wells may go underwater. Let's say flooding may go down the street and the flood control channels may not hold it, and there needs to be some kind of a big pit built in the earth to contain that water so it doesn't flood out everybody and everything. If the same 3 agencies, let's just say the CDS and County Flood Control, all got together and said, hey, we're all golden, can we apply for a grant to get this done? Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yes, it takes all 3 agencies have to have it approved, in place, hazard mitigation.
Okay.
If that is true, and they agree to do one, then I can write one that's benefits all 3.
Wow.
So we've done them in the past. The last one I did at East Valley was on flooding, and it was the city of San Bernardino, the city of Highland, and East Valley. You know, so it can definitely benefit, but I don't know if the city has one anymore or not. I did one years ago.
I said hypothetical. I qualified that, I said hypothetical,
Anyway.
but it is possible.
Yeah, it is possible, yes, absolutely.
Thank you. I thought it was a very well written and very well organized plan.
The format of it has to be the FEMA format. Doesn't make sense sometimes, but that's the way it has to be.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions?
I have no.
No other questions? Okay, so we need to approve this, so we need a motion to accept and approve, if I'm correct?
Motion to approve, and also as FEMA makes the corrections, we will be doing the corrections as well, and we'll bring it back in final.
So who would like to make that motion
Callaway,
based on
yes,
what
as
he
well.
said?
I'll make the motion.
And I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we accept the hazardous mitigation plan. That's our mascot. And agree to the changes that may be made by FEMA and their agencies.
Yes, yeah.
And Callaway, yes. Cindy, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Arthur?
Aye.
Director Coghill?
Yes.
Director Woods?
Yes.
Director Giannini?
Aye.
And Director Leeser is absent.
Okay, Gary, thank you. Thank you very much.
Always a pleasure.
So in case of an emergency, Gary, and we need you in the AOC, are you going to be able to get here, or is it based on the emergency?
Well, I hope to get here.
Like cracks in the earth, power lines down, or what?
That's where the communications come in.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
gonna have-
And that's communication with the county too, to help me get, to help them get me here.
Okay,
That's why I have a GETS card that is from Towns Road. But, because I'm on retainer here and there.
right.
So it would be joint. You're close enough that if it's one, it's affecting both of you.
Certainly.
So, but anyway, I would do my best to get here if that would be having to fly in apparently. So-
Helicopters come in handy during those situations.
Exactly. So.
All right, thank you, Gary. Moving right along. Item number 2, approve directors to attend the CSDA Annual Conference and Exhibitors Showcase. That's September 9th through September 12th of 2024, and provide the daily meeting stipend.
This year's California Special District Conference will be held in Indian Wells from September 9th to 12th, and we're looking for the board of directors, anybody interested, and then maybe just to do a blanket, everybody approved for the daily stipend and to go to the conference, and then we will work out the details, and if the board has any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
Do you-
If you go, do you have to go every day?
No, but we do pay for the full conference if you go. And if you say, like, I can only make a day, I think there's a way with CSDA that we can only pay for a certain day.
Yep.
So if there's something that you see in the conference, it's something that's going to be beneficial to you, or we can definitely get you a one-day pass, but we usually do the full conference.
And I have to say, if you go to anything, go to the CSDA conferences that are available.
That's the one in Indian Wells, that's this one.
That's right. Yeah, but I won't be going to Indian Wells. It's going to be hotter in September.
So you're not going to go?
No, I worked in that area. Heck no.
I'll be going.
Okay, so we'll just need approval to say that the board members are given the approval to go to the conference, and daily stipends will be, given for the conference. And then we can work out the details with hotels, if we're going to stay down there, who's going to go, who can go, if there's only single days that something's on the agenda that you want to go to. Sometimes City B is even there putting on a class that we can go to, so it's kind of fun to see.
Not this time.
Not at this one, but there's been leadership conferences with CSDA where I have sat through, I think, a finance class with Cindy, breakout sessions, keynote speakers. It's a really good conference, and if you can make it, it's a good conference. And again, I also usually attend these conferences depending on how many board members are going, even if it's one or zero. I usually still attend the CSDA conferences.
Yeah, I echo the same sentiments as our general manager and our president of the board. Anytime you get to go to a CSDA conference, it's well worth it. You come back with an awful lot of information. I'm sure Mike and Randy, if he was here, would attest to the same thing. It's very, very worthwhile to go to those. You come back with a lot of knowledge.
We learn a lot.
Yes, we really do. It's not just something to escape and spend money at. It's something you learn, something you bring it back, and you can actually use it
Yeah.
in your day-to-day. So we're going to need a motion for what the general manager was talking about.
So I move for the approval of all directors to be able to attend the conference for all or part of the CSDA conference from the 9th to the 12th of September, should they choose.
And
I'll second.
daily and
And approve
Daily
the daily stipend for the days that they would attend.
You second, Mike?
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. May we have a roll call vote, Cindy?
Director Arthur?
Aye.
Director Coghill?
Yes.
Director Woods?
Yes.
Director Giannini?
Aye.
And Director Leeser is absent.
Thank you, Cindy.
Just for point of order, what is the stipend for each day?
your daily stipend for your meetings, so.
Okay.
Your monthly.
3-ish.
I understand.
Yeah.
All right, item 3, approving amendment to general manager's employment agreement.
Today before you is the second amendment to the general manager's contract employment with the 29 Palms Water District. And staff would be making the recommendation to approve the second amendment. If you'd like to go into details on the amendment, we can. We've had 2 closed sessions, but really we're just looking for the amendment to be approved.
Does anybody have any questions without going into details?
No.
No. Not if I can't go into detail.
Well, it depends on the details.
I know.
Okay, well then we're going to need a roll call. Excuse me.
I move to approve the second amendment to the general manager's employment agreement for Matt Stragan, the 29 Palms Water District.
I'll second.
Cindy, roll call vote, please.
Director Arthur?
Aye.
Director Coghill?
Yes.
Director Woods?
Yes.
Director Giannini?
I suppose.
Director Leeser is absent.
Quick on that note, I just would like to thank you guys for approving the provisions in this amendment and allowing myself to continue to lead this organization. So thank you, and thank you for going back in the war room and having discussions, great discussions. Thank you. I appreciate it.
And thank you for all that you do, Matt.
Yes, let me clarify. My comments were not because I don't want Matt as manager, that's for sure. He was my first pick. But there are other extenuating things that I didn't agree with fully.
All right, item number 4, emergency rehabilitation of well 14. General Manager, can you fill us in on that?
Yeah, so before you today is consideration to accept a proposal for Legend Pump and Well Service Company. Early in June, staff found Well 14 was having some major issues on monthly activities. Legend Well and Pump was contacted and was able to pull the pump quickly. Usually that's the driver of who we have come and work on our equipment. When it's a well that's down, we can call Legend, we can call Lane, we can call the companies that we use. In pulling Well 14, we found that there were many broken retainers. It's a water lube well. The retainers hold the shaft together. Rubbers had either popped out or the retainers were damaged themselves. And it was also, at the time, made aware from Legend that the bowl assembly was questionable. The bowl assembly is your pump and your everything down low in the well at the bottom. So district staff is making the recommendation to accept the proposal from Lane Pump and Service in the amount of $77,176 for the repairs, refurbish, and reinstallation of well 14. And if there's any questions, I'm glad to answer.
Director Woods?
No.
Director Arthur?
This is the only repair invoice that we solicited, or?
So usually when a company comes and pulls the well, whether it was Lane or Legend, it's who can get here the fastest.
Okay.
And they could get here right away. And then they take the equipment back to their shop. So you start getting 3 or 4 quotes with the equipment down at one person's shop. We're going to be here a lot longer. So this is more like an emergency repair.
Sure.
Usually on an emergency repair on a well that's 800 GPM or higher, we're probably calling it in 2 weeks. This is a well that's only 400, 450, 500 GPM. So we decided we would wait for the board meeting to get the emergency funds approved, but yes, only one quote was asked for.
Okay, makes
Great
sense.
question, though.
So thus, all of this travel here and there and get equipment here and there and that justifies the expense for a helicopter. Don't you think, Cindy?
That's when you look at Cindy B and say, can we do this?
I was
Cindy, can we
watching
get
her
helicopters,
face
Cindy?
when I was saying it. And then we could teach our people to fly it, you know.
Can you give us a little insight and history on the well? How old's the well? Its production? We ever had any problems like this before?
You know, I'm going to be honest, 14 has seen some issues before, and 17 sits right next to it at about 900, I think 850 GPM. 900 GPM. This water lube is a newer well. We don't oil drip the wells anymore. Robert might be able to fill us in on the year of the well. You know the year of that well?
When it was drilled?
Yeah, drilled.
I want to say like 80?
So
82?
80 was when it was drilled, but every time you pull equipment, you do what we call a video. So we video log it, go down with a video, go through the well, and we look for, are we seeing failure in the well? They've told us again, a light brush and bail, you guys should be good, this well's still good. You can ask the questions on why you lost retainers and why you're getting that vibration. And it was pretty violent. The guys were out there the day that it turned on and was kicking out kind of air water or milky water. So right away they made the decision, we got to pull the well and see what's going on because the shaft was moving. We knew we had some kind of failure down low.
Yep.
In a well like this, to see it rehabbed 2 years later or 3 years later, because we did rehab this 3 years ago, we're not quite sure if the water lube, so we're doing a couple things different that Legend is requesting us to do with this well, putting some different shafts in and some different retainers, different than the whole setup was. But for the most part, it is a production well that we're getting 400 GPM with good water quality. So good water quality wells are hard to come by. You never know if one of your constituents is creeping up, and this seems to be a really good well that's in that aquifer. So this was very important just to get back online.
So I guess what I'm hearing from staff and from the general manager is the juice is worth the squeeze, get it fixed.
Juice is worth the squeeze. Now listen, if we went down that well and we saw catastrophic failure where the retainers saw gravel pack coming in or we saw issues with that well, they would tell us at this point for you to, because there is a way you can lift the well. Say we go down to the bottom of the well and it says we're at 413 feet. Well, we know we have 7 foot of debris in it because it's 420 feet deep.
Right.
If we saw 300 and they said, hey, you've got major damage somewhere, it wouldn't be worth it. We would have to re-drill this well. So the juice is worth the squeeze in this
Okay.
situation.
Had to ask.
Yeah.
Okay, any other,
I'm writing that down.
what? The juice is worth the
Squeezing and
squeeze?
juicing, yeah. I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Hang around with Bob for a
Any
while.
other questions, comments, concerns, criticisms? No? Okay. And I believe for this, we're going to,
Motion.
no, this is just a discussion.
Move,
We did the discussion.
Yeah.
and then.
Oh, this is item 4, I beg your pardon. Cindy, we're going to need a roll call vote?
I need a motion and a
Well,
second
yeah,
Oh,
first.
yeah, that too.
Move that we, at least pay the bill, right? At least pay the $77,176
$77,176.
for the repair of this well.
Seconded.
Do we need a roll call?
Roll call, yeah.
Yes. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Cindy, can I have a roll call vote, please?
Director Arthur?
Aye.
Director Coghill?
Yes.
Director Woods?
Yes.
Director Giannini?
Aye.
And Director Leeser is absent.
Okay. Item 5, discussion of the cooperative USGS study between the 29 Palms Water District and the City of 29 Palms. General Manager?
This item is a discussion item on the USGS study. The USGS study is a 4 to 5 year study that will help the district and the city gain insight on the aquifers that the district pulls water from. Some of the major objectives in the USGS study are collect and reviewing existing geohydraulic data, determining database quality, modeling aquifers to estimate quantities, quality being pumped from different zones, developing alluvial thickness and depths to water, installing new monitoring wells. One of the biggest aspects of this USGS study is allowing the city and the water district to understand what the unsaturated zone in the aquifers is at with nitrates. Where are we at with nitrates? And is sewer coming? So this USGS study is very important to see where those zones are. The big discussion point for the USGS study here today, because we've had this, but I wanted to give it kind of a refresher. But the big, what the district staff is asking for is an additional $100,000. So currently we have $100,000 in the budget for this year, and this is a 5-year study. We're asking for an additional $100,000 for the next 4 years, so $50,000 for 4 years. And I just wanted to, this study is about a $2.3 million study altogether. With the EPA grants that the city has already got, that they're reallocating funds for, we have 1.9 million. The district is contributing 100,000, with hopefully a second 100,000, with USGS contributing $192,792 as well. So the shortfall, if we don't do the extra 100,000 in the 4 years, is about a $99,000 shortfall. So the discussion was mainly about the extra 100,000. If the board has any questions, I'd be glad to answer. And hopefully I did a good enough discussion on the USGS, because we've had a more in-depth discussion, but today is more going after that extra $100,000.
And this is a very valuable service for the district, so we can plan our future too.
Correct.
Director Woods? Director Arthur?
No question.
Director Giannini?
I have no questions.
How's the bank?
The bank is okay.
We can afford it.
Okay.
Maybe some discussion though on
How to
approving, we won't approve today, but we'll put in the budget for years to come, but just a consensus that we feel like this $200,000 of a $2.3 million USGS study for the 29 Palms Water District is extremely important. And we are in the process of reallocating those funds through federal lobbyists and the EPA money. So just a discussion, or we feel like, we're kind of good to budget those items in the next 4 years.
I just know this is important for not just us, but also for the city, because we've always wondered what the impact of septic tanks.
Exactly.
What does that have to do with our drinking water currently, and can we foresee anything from it?
Well, 29 Palms is our population expands at approximately 1% every 10 years. So this came up when Mr. Lucchino was the city manager. And that's when I did the study. In fact, I came in and got a USGS book from the library in the office, because I knew nothing about it. And I think that it's great to see the water district and the city working together on this. It's a very expensive project. And, we need to address it, start addressing it now. Even though the expansion of the population is so typically very minimal. And maybe Amy wouldn't agree with that, because she sees a lot of kids go through the high school, but that's what the statistics say. And I'm all in favor of working with the city on this project.
I think it's crucial
I
to
do
work
too.
with the city on this project. And much as I was questioning, just making myself, having clarity on our emergency planning, again, working for the school district, it is not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Exactly.
And so having those types of training, that is not the time to find out that you're lacking in something, or is there something that you didn't think of. And so, as Mike said, taking a look at what has been the effect of septic discharge, that's one of the things. The other thing that's concerned me long before I became a member of this incredible board is determining, is baseline water quality. What is the water quality? And I'm very satisfied with the competence of the management of this water district and the workers and the employees in the field. Incredibly satisfied with that. However, in order to do those jobs, you have to have that baseline information. So to continue just working on the assumption of 10 years ago, or whenever the last time this was done, would be foolhardy. So I'm 100% in favor of reallocating those funds and in working with the city, because again, as of late, some of the emergencies that have occurred were not expected, and we have to be able to plan for what might or come up, whether it's your tenure here, our tenure here, or 10 years down the road for the people who replace us. It's imperative to know that. And if we're not working with the city on a multitude of issues and we're functioning in silos, that doesn't benefit the citizenry of 29 Palms, nor does it benefit the future citizenry of 29 Palms. So I'm all in favor of that.
Very well put, Amy. And the price is right. I mean, an obligation of $200,000 on a $2.3 million venture. When's the last time a full USGS study was done for a district?
In this region of those aquifers that they're looking at, there has not been one. And USGS is that agency that, the discussion has come up, can somebody else do this study? Yes, somebody else can. It doesn't come with the clout that USGS puts to it, being a federal agency themselves. So this USGS study for these aquifers are very important to get some of the data on the unsaturated zone and the alluvial fills and the different things that I don't even understand yet till we totally dive into this study in 4 to 5 years. So thank you guys, I appreciate the discussion.
So no action is required on us other than a consensus from the board to move forward with this. I, for one, would say yes to that consensus. Agreed?
Yeah.
Okay. Consensus. All right. Item number 6. Discussion of health insurance for the board of directors.
The discussion on health benefits for board of directors, making the presentation will be Cindy Byron with Ed Bailey, and we will have a discussion.
Okay, thank you, Matt. We did a calculation to see what it would cost to have the board members fully on the same benefits the employees have, which is 100% of the employee and then 70% of the dependents or spouse. And so anytime we do these calculations, we always do like, what's the max going to be and what's the lowest? So if somebody picked the most expensive plan and had a spouse, that was the max. We did that assumption, assumed no vacancies, 5 board members, themselves and a spouse, and it was came to about $125,000 a year. Factoring in for fiscal 25, not factoring in an increase in healthcare costs that are going to come in January. On the lower end, if everybody was single and didn't have anybody and picked the least expensive plan, it came to about $52,000. So that was the range. And so that cost, as we do the future rate study, which we're going to be starting in January of next year, we could look at it over the long term because it would be a cost that escalates every year, depending on how healthcare costs escalate. That's the dollar amount. And for reference, every $100,000 of expense translates into about 1.25% to 2% higher rate increase, depending on future factors and escalations of healthcare costs. We had 1 year where healthcare costs went up significantly, and then some years it's much more mild. So I couldn't even guess on that, but I would say that in the rate study where we do that 20-year financial projections, that would kind of show us more what the impact long-term to the district would be. Short-term impact would be $52,000 to $125,000. Happy to answer any questions.
Director Woods?
Right. This wouldn't necessarily be a question for you, Cindy, but it's a general question. Are directors of the water board considered employees of the water district?
Yes.
Thank you. And is it the norm for, and I say norm, is it a regularity for boards, whether they be other water boards or they be other publicly elected boards, to be offered insurance through their employer?
I'd say it's about 60-40 at my districts. So 60% do offer it, and the same as what the employees have, and 40% don't offer any type.
Okay. And is it feasible to go back and do more study on insurance benefits being offered to, because again, just because you offer them doesn't mean that anyone's going to take them. My concern in bringing this up was for people who are self-employed who have a difficulty, like say a self-employed plumber, which would be a wonderful person to have on a water board, or perhaps a single mother who would be great to have on the water board but doesn't have insurance. So those are that is the reason for bringing it up. And also for, again, the regularity or consistency with other boards, whether they be water boards or publicly elected boards. Is there a way to go back and, or is it possible to go and do further study on offering insurance only to the employee and not the spouse?
Sure.
In terms of cost? And secondarily, is it feasible to take a look at the cost? Well, again, I asked if they were employees of the district, so it would be in general what you would offer to employees. But as the water board directors do not work every day, as the water district employees do, is it feasible to do some type of a study on what they would pay for their portion? In other words, that the water district didn't pay for all of it, but that there would be a portion that they would be able to buy into the insurance, thereby making health insurance affordable for someone who wanted to run for the water board, but not entirely paid for by the district. Those would just be continuing questions.
We can evaluate any scenario.
Okay, thank you.
I don't have so much as a question as I do a comment, as going to things like the special district conferences and things like that. We've learned there's a very wide breadth here in California just on special districts as to what board members are paid, what type of benefits are offered. And I mean, we've seen the full gamut where it's all volunteer to where, oh no, it's 125,000 is a drop in the bucket for what, the board gets paid. So I think there's a lot of wiggle room because this board has tried very hard to be good stewards of the taxpayer money that we get and our customers' money that we have. And just knowing that even in this area, there are boards who are compensated way better. I think doing something like this, whatever it looks like, is an incentive to get more candidates running for board seats. And I think that ultimately benefits the taxpayers the most.
I would also make a comment piggybacking off of what Mike said, because I don't think there's anybody on the board right now that would avail themselves of the insurance. I'm thinking futuristically. And I've also just recently had an experience with the registrar of voters, where they are, let's call it 2 hours away from here. And again, for a single mother who might want to run for the board, or a self-employed person who doesn't have a vehicle perhaps, or, that's an expense, or just couldn't get down there during those hours. I feel it's a disenfranchisement of people being able to run for public office. I was very disappointed in what I encountered with that, because we aren't 20 minutes away from the registrar of voters. We're very far away. And so I just feel like we need to, as a board, futuristically look at the sustainability of and the viability of people wanting to serve on this board. I think that ultimately you will find few people that want to avail themselves of the insurance, but having it available as an option is just something I want to explore. And whether it be at $120,000 maximum or lower than that, I wouldn't want in any way to affect, in a substantial way, rates for people, myself included. That being said, a board does need to oversee the operations of this water district for the benefit of the citizenry. So I just think that we need to look into it.
Carol?
Well, due to the cost, and I'm not And considering this is not a full-time position, I think, I understand what you're saying, and I appreciate what you're saying, Amy, and you too, Michael. But due to the cost, I think that if someone wants to be on the board, then they should run for the board, and once they're on it, they can change it. They can address it at that time. I don't feel comfortable as part of the board right now voting to bring benefits for the board of directors, any benefits.
If I may say that, looking at the agenda item, it's a discussion. We're not going to vote on anything tonight. It's just a discussion for staff to move forward and then investigate the different aspects of it and the costs and situations that are involved. I appreciate and understand what Michael and Amy have both said, because it would make, hopefully it would make a considerable difference in applicants that are moving forward when we're not here anymore. It would make it easier to get those applicants, which would still be their decision after they came on, or maybe not. I mean, it's up to the individual. I myself, I would not be addressing the insurance, but that doesn't say that someone else wouldn't. But it would be their option.
Well, and I think one of the considerations too, I mean, just putting it out there, when we did a comp comparison to get the board of directors an increase in their, we may have to do I'm not sure, I've kind of reached out to legal and I'm waiting for some answers. Might have to do a public hearing just because it's a compensation plan thing. And again, public hearings don't mean much either. It's the public getting their right to come in and say you should have them, you shouldn't. So we take all that into consideration. I think the district is at a time where this is definitely something we should look into, for the fact that the candidate pool should be maybe more than it has been in the past. This could be enticing. And it could also be at a point where if three of you decide that the next group has to make that decision, we also have to sit back and understand how we do that as policy as well. So, but policy direction, giving more questions and getting more answers, this can always come up as another discussion item. And I'd be glad to bring it back with getting you guys better understanding and feeling comfortable even with some legal issues that I have with BBK.
Yeah, I didn't even take that into consideration. That's a hill we're going to have to climb.
Yeah, we just have to have the discussion.
Yeah.
And the compensation time when we did that 2 years ago, it was a fairly easy discussion. You guys don't get as much credit as you deserve as board of directors and what you do to this district to make sure policy and procedure are in place and we're doing the things right that we're doing. So to entice the people, the younger generation that maybe are, single moms or plumbers or somebody that doesn't have that insurance, I mean, we don't always think of that. So even having the idea that they're not full-time employees and what does a paid portion look like? It's a great point. So it's just those things as open discussion I think we need to have, because not even that, we're going to put policy in place if this is going to go that route, and we want that policy to be really solid when that time comes.
I entirely appreciate what Carol has said and respect that. She's been doing this a long time. I just wanted to bring it for a discussion of what would the impact be, and have that general question answered of, are the board of directors employees of the water district? Because I believe that's a fair question. And in no way am I asking for any I'm not asking for any study on any compensation increase or anything like that. I agree with Carol's kind of survey of what serving public service is, for sure. I just would ask if we could bring something that wouldn't involve spouses, and even to a concept where someone who didn't have a group health insurance and couldn't get it, but was perhaps on the board, would be able to COBRA into it. Do you know what I mean? That thing that wouldn't maybe cost anything or little. Just the opportunity to have it. Health insurance is a big deal anymore. And those were the questions I was asking, Cindy.
I misspoke earlier, I'm sorry. The 52,000 is a single only. So, and it's the lowest plan, single only. Then I kind of worked the numbers. Let's say if you said we'll pay for 90% of it, it would be 46,000. So I think every 10% you go down $5,000 in cost.
So So say, let me understand, so say 52,000 was employee only
Correct,
at the lowest insurance
correct.
for all 5 people.
For all 5 people, for
assumption is for all
health,
5 people, so it's
medical, dental,
$50,000
and vision, yes,
For all 5 people
correct,
at 100% paid.
With no spouse.
correct.
Right.
Correct, with no
So
spouse.
the assumption then would be at 50% pay for the entire board to opt into insurance would be 25,000.
Correct.
Yeah,
And that would equate to what type of an impact into the budget for, because I think you said something about a rating, or we're
About
maybe
a
not
quarter
that,
percent,
about
a
what?
quarter percent, if that.
I'm just
Yeah.
asking for those numbers. Thank you so much for bringing that, and
Sure.
I just really
Good-
appreciate the
good
rest of the
question.
board's
Good questions, Amy, good questions.
entertaining the notion of talking about it.
And the other question, just something that comes out of that in my mind, is we would have to check with pool that we could split. I've never been involved with that, so benefits,
Splitting the type of
100%,
insurance, I
hey,
understand.
now can these 5 employees only do this? That would be something we would
That's
check with
true.
Aqua JPIA, because I don't know, it's very strict when you have a plan in place that you pick from this plan. So before we said that too,
Yeah.
I just want to check with Aqua
Well, they
JPIA to
allow
make sure that's something
Thank
we
you.
could even do.
Understandable,
Yeah.
thank you. Really appreciate the work, thank you.
Sure. You're welcome.
All right. Item 7 is our consent calendar. Matters on the consent calendar are to be considered routine and will be acted in a single motion. There'll be no separate discussion of these items unless the board, staff, or the public request specific items to be removed for separate discussion and action before the board votes on a motion to adopt. They are the minutes of the regular meeting held on June 26, 2024, and the current audit list. Need a motion to accept the consent calendar.
I'll make a motion.
I second.
Motion is second. Cindy, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Director Arthur?
Aye.
Director Coghill?
Yes.
Director Woods?
Yes.
Director Giannini?
Aye.
And Director Leeser is absent.
All right. Turn a couple of pages here. There are no items removed from the consent calendar, so item 9, management reports. 9.1, Superintendent Minitry.
Good evening, Board of Directors. The Operation and Maintenance Department performed the following tasks during the month of June. Responded to 55 USAs. We had 5 leak audits, 22 shut-offs, 535 total work orders completed, turned 253 valves, installed 3 new services. There was 1,208 past due bills, total of $6,375 in penalty fees. And the pay meters were up 161,000 gallons compared to the same month in 2023. And I'll be glad to answer any questions if the board has any.
Questions? Director Woods, Director Arthur?
Nope.
I have none. Thank you, Mike.
I have no questions either. Thank you, Mike. Next, we'll have water quality and Superintendent Sullivan.
Water quality report for June 2024, chlorine levels, we averaged a 0.29 milligrams per liter in our storage and distribution system. Bacteria samples were collected at all test points throughout the distribution system and all came back absent. Fluoride samples were also collected at established test points, with the average being a 1.13 milligrams per liter. Production, we were down 1% compared to same time last year, and we were down 22.5% compared to 2013. Do you have any questions?
Questions? Any questions? No.
I have none. Thank you, Bob.
I have no questions. All right, and next up is finance. Come on, Finance Director.
That was
Cindy
quick. You guys usually take a little longer. For the month of May, this is the year-end results through May. We're coming out ahead, and we're ahead than what we budgeted because of the interest revenue that we didn't budget for such large amount of an increase. We had not factored in at that time all the money that we would put in class, which is earning a superior investment rate right now. That said, that probably is not going to be the case next year. The feds have talked about lowering the interest rate two decreases this year and 4 next year, according to, I know.
We'll see.
I'm not sure I believe that either, but that is what people at Chandler Assets, and they manage, hundreds of millions of dollars. They think it probably is going to happen.
Can you repeat just that last, what they think what's going to happen?
That the feds are going to decrease 2 times more this year and 4 times next year. The federal rate.
That is going to.
And that decrease, so for kind of context, for the longest time, LAIF was earning less than 1% in interest revenue because the feds decreased so much. Then when the economy started, when inflation goes up, they started to increase it because they want people to slow down their spending. So that's kind of the balancing act is they had said they were going to do 4 rate increases this year, decreases, and they didn't do any. So our interest rate is holding steady. We budgeted for a 1% decrease. We budgeted for 4 25 basis cuts, thinking that, might happen, assuming it would happen for the whole year. So for next year. For this year, we thought it was going to decrease quite a bit faster because the feds promised they were going to, and they didn't. So it's all overall a very positive thing unless you're looking to borrow money or buy a house. Then it's not so positive, but for our investments, we're doing very well. I think we budgeted, sorry, let me find that. $92,000, we're at $413,000 in interest revenue. The other reason we're doing well is capital impact fees. So we don't know how much activity growth is going to happen. So typically most of my agencies will budget 0 for capital impact fees. We budgeted $75,000 here because there's always somebody building out here. But right now through May, it's at $252,000. So that's significantly higher than what we budgeted just because it's an unknown. So activity does seem to be, there's a lot of buildings and we're getting a lot of fees. As a reminder, the board very wisely updated the fee study a couple of years ago. The capital impact fees were very low and we're not recouping the cost of buying into the district system. So we had a professional study done that came in and said, this is what the price should be. And that has benefited the district in ways that maybe we didn't see in the long term. So that's positive. But next year we could have no growth. It could be 0. So we just don't know. So overall, it's a positive story for now.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Happy to answer any questions.
Director Woods? Director Harper? President Giannini?
I have none. Thank you, Cindy.
One question.
Sure.
The tower,
Tower income.
what's that called? There's a word for that.
Cell phone tower revenue?
Tower revenues, thank you, tower revenues. Are they allocated?
Are they what?
Allocated? Earmarked, allocated?
No, it goes to the water fund. So it's discretionary. We put it in a separate fund to show that that's income that perhaps if you wanted to have a subsidy program for low-income residents, you could use that money and not violate Prop 218, for example. So that's why we keep it in a separate fund. It helps to just see that for a while there, we were allocating it to the fire department, part of it. And so that's all helps in the rate study to ease the burden on the rates too.
So if we were to allocate those funds into a USGS study over the next X amount of years, would that be legal?
Oh, sure. I mean, it can be used for any district business.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And finally, our general manager's report.
Well, I'm going to stay with capital impacts real quick because they are unpredictable. But with Project Phoenix, we're starting to see some plan checks going to start with the hotel. And we've got a 3-inch meter we're putting in. We haven't put a 3-inch meter in this district in 20 years.
Long time.
The capital impact fees alone are about $73,000 just on that capital impact fee. So doing the rate study 4 years ago and changing those fees was very important for people to buy in to 86 square miles and hundreds of miles of pipe at the right cost. And the contractor or the investor that I talked to, he didn't flinch when I told him it was $73,000 plus time and material because we don't have a set fee when we set a 3-inch meter across the street. I just wanted to stay with capital impact because it's, again, we don't know if we'll see it, but more than likely we're going to be setting that 3-inch meter. Management report for me, district staff worked on installing 600 feet of PVC that we were going to put in a couple weeks ago before the storm hit. They finished it last week. We found a section in town that was old 4-inch to 2-inch steel that was starting to fail. We made the decision that because we had an easement in place, let's go ahead and replace it. So you'll see that under emergency repairs and upgrades to the system. 600 feet of PVC is in. It's only 1 meter that's off of it with a new hydrant. Staff was able to do that in 2 days. And that's really good for a staff that hasn't laid a lot of pipe and been out in the field. Us doing it in-house is a big deal. When we can do it for material at about $20K and a pipeline contractor's putting it in at $100 a foot, it's a $70,000, $80,000 job that we did in 2 days for about $20K. So that's the difference in how the district staff works. District has also completed its consumer confidence report for 2023, so it's now available on the website. Thanks to Mike putting in a ton of work like he does every year to compile the data on water quality. And every year that consumer confidence report has to come out. So that is available at the website. District has received the preliminary design report for the redundant reservoir and booster station at the treatment plant. And we had a meeting this last Thursday to have discussion on things that we liked, we didn't like. And so that job, that engineering job for right now is full swing. Webb is the one, Webb Engineering got the job. Our head web guy's out of Vegas. Our electrical contractor is out of Utah. And then Michael Thomas with ESG Engineering is our main that's helping me with plan review, and he's been amazing. We may be coming back to the table with getting him on board as our engineer for here at the district on smaller projects. So, one of the things that the district did as a whole is our workplace violence program. We're going to come back to you guys with policy on workplace violence, but we did partake in our workplace violence training. Everybody had to partake in workplace violence training. It's a new mandatory law. I wish I remembered what Senate bill it was, but workplace violence training took place. And now for the big item, on Sunday, July 14th, 29 Palms was hit with a major storm with flash flooding. And at the time of the flash flood, staff started to receive major issues that we don't usually deal with, including a hit hydrant down at Adobe. We do deal with that quite a bit, people coming off the base. But at the same time, the hydrant wasn't going 40 foot in the air, so there had to be another issue going on in that zone. And we found out there was 200 feet of 8-inch AC that was also blown out into a dune where we wouldn't have found it if we didn't find the post on Facebook and then reach out to figure out how we could get down there. At the same time, the high school was having a little bit of an issue with some storm drain. Find out it wasn't potable water. It was that much water coming through the storm drains, but we still had a crew over there as well. And at the meantime, one of our big hotels, we had to shut down a 2-inch service because their domestic water was interrupted by the storm. So 4 incidents in a time of about 30 minutes made me leave down in Palm Springs with my mom to get up here, and Mike had staff already out there working and doing what we needed to do to get this stuff mitigated and shut down.
Gary, does that qualify for their tabletop demonstration?
That would have been a great one because he would throw those exercises at us, so that was good. I just want to say the communication between the new city manager, Stone James, the superintendent of public works, Craig Stacy, the emergency manager and the IT consultant, Eli Marshall, our emergency manager, Gary Sturdivant, San Bernardino County Fire Sheriff Captains, amazing. So members of our board, I've reached out. You guys were there. Pizza was there. It was amazing. Thank you. And the district employees, last but not least, and I probably leave out the superintendents, but the district employees that step in on a Sunday to make sure they're not going home till 9 o'clock, till we're taken care of. So the communication, first and foremost, that we've done as a group with this new city manager seems like it's at a higher level than it's ever been, so that's impressive. Our employees did an amazing job responding to the different situations that we were up against, shutting down main pipelines, 12-inch stuff on Adobe. They were in 3 foot of water at one point. I thought they were in a trench 6 foot deep, but they were really on their hands and knees searching for the valve to get the hydrant off. So just us juggling that for Sunday and then coming in for the rest of the week with things that we're not usually dealing with and having to deploy groups out there, I just have to give the credit to the people where it's due, and it's the employees of this district that are 9 o'clock doesn't matter. What they put above their own lives is important to know, that we have a group that is public servant ready. We had a guy that had a house flooded out and he stuck with us, knowing that he had a house flooded out and he would deal with it the next day. And we gave him the day off to kind of figure out how he needed to deal with that. So I just wanted to bring this up. And I just want to, again, thank you guys for the commitment that you've made to us in being out there in emergency situations and reaching out and making sure we're taken care of in the field, because that does happen. And when people are going around, I can depend on the board to get us pizza or get us a meal while maybe I'm on a piece of equipment. So I'm just proud of being part of this team. And if I can't reiterate it enough, the city and the water district are in a way different place than we've been for a couple years, and the credit that needs to be given there as well, and explaining how emergency response has to work, and we have to do this as a group because we're the ones that are here depending on each other. I didn't get a lot of reach outs from other districts, which was very frustrating, but I did from our city. And that was nice to know that we still had people that supported us and backed us. And Stone James and I are working really close on a couple issues to make sure that USGS and emergency management and the different things that we haven't been as close as district and city, that we're making sure that this community comes first. So with that being said, I just want to thank everybody, thank the employees again, and even the ladies were getting on Facebook and found the 8-inch leak and were able to instant message the person and say, where are we at? We need to know where we're going next, because we knew we had other issues going on, and we did an amazing job for a young group that we are. So just wanted you guys to know about what's going on kind of with us lately through these storm conditions. And in the meantime, they're still out putting in 600 feet of 6-inch in a day and a quarter. And they're already testing and back T testing and doing everything to get that live and online. And if I talk to water lingo, I know sometimes I do, Director Woods gives me that look like, what are we talking about? Please, if you have any questions on what's going on, I'd be glad to answer.
Comments, criticisms, suggestions?
Had been my question of what was the total impact of the recent storms on the equipment and the employees of the district, and you've answered that. The storm that occurred yesterday, that I think did some damage out here, we didn't have any. There was nothing that really impacted the water district from that one.
No, but the one thing we are going to be doing here in the next week or two is the area that got hit where the houses were 3 foot. We've made mention through the supervisors that we're going to go find all our appurtenances, fire hydrants, hydrant valves for the hydrants, valves in the street, meter boxes, get them all cleaned out. Let everybody know that they can get to they can access their appurtenances for the water district, meters and everything. And 2 Mile Road too, because those were the areas that really got hit. A toll on our guys, yeah, they haven't seen this. And when we came from the pipeline industry of laying pipe in this community, we did it every day. So this week has been hard. Last week has been hard. This week, I'm hoping we're getting a little bit of let up, but putting in the 6-inch pipe that was, scheduled a couple weeks out. We're kind of on it right now. We're just one after another with some pretty big things. We just did come across a 12-inch leak on 2-mile road that we're dealing with probably tomorrow. And again, that's something we don't see at this district very often. Fixing a 12-inch main line is shutting down customers. So the way that we're going to attack that tomorrow and be able to be clean and back on service and one-way feed so that we have no bacteria issues, it's a big deal to run a water district, and we all here take pride in it. And I'm proud to say that I do get to lead such a great group of individuals. We're a good team here.
Director Irvin?
No questions. Good job.
No questions, comments. Thank you, Matt, for all that you do.
Thank you, and thanks staff and the
Thank
guys
you,
in the
Steve.
field for all that you guys do, because
Thank everyone.
without you, we wouldn't be sitting here doing anything. My question just evaporated, so moving on.
Remembered about midnight.
Yeah, I'll call you in a minute. Item 10, future agenda items and staff tasks or director's comments and reports. Director Woods?
My only comment would be if we could have a future agenda item. I really am interested in and I'm curious about ways that the water district can partner with the school district, obviously. And I was very interested in some of the things that Gary had said about some of the big ticket items that come up, not the least of which is cybersecurity, for which we run a program, emergency management, for which we run a program. And we've always been interested in running a water or a green renewable energy program. And I feel like there's a lot of areas where we could partner and get the young people to understand just what the options and opportunities are that they wouldn't think of, and that they're kind of right under their nose and that they could get some experience in. I'm really interested in that. And just again, having the information about, just the continual information about the training for emergency and what we're doing to work together with the city. Kind of maybe 5 or 6 months ago, we had talked about, when Larry Bowden was serving as interim, talking about joint exercises, activities, meetings like that. Again, I'm really interested in that, because when things like this happen, like the report that you just gave, it's crucial that the agencies work together with the city. I live off a 2-mile as well and experienced, what happened, and Matt was calling and letting us know what was going on. It's a big deal to the people here, and I just think it's really important that the partner agencies work together. So, I'd like that to be an ongoing area of discussion. Project.
Director Arthur?
Nothing.
Madam President?
It's been way too many years since we've had a joint emergency response thingy.
Exercise?
Exercise, thank you. That thingy. And I remember when I was, whether I was with 29 Fire or Joshua Tree Ambulance, I don't remember. They would have them every few years, wouldn't they, Bob?
Yes.
Yes.
Annually.
This is an experienced person in doing that, so.
We had them annually.
We've done some SIMS and NIMS 100, 700 training, not through Gary's Thursday. That was a little different as a bigger group. But a tabletop exercise, I'll talk with Stone and see how Gary can get us a tape.
Tabletops are one thing, we're actually doing that
Yeah,
physically out there. Back in the day, we used to do them all the time to see how well so that I would know what you guys knew to do and you would know what I needed to do. So actual physical,
Functional exercise.
yes, physical exercise.
Functional, yeah.
It's
They call it
functional.
Team difference.
They're great. That's how you really learn and you really remember.
To what Carol said, and I remember being a principal at Troy High, and it was an interagency
I remember.
simulation. It would have been in probably the early 2000s, but all the agencies. I mean, base, fire, police, helis, everybody was in on. The scenario was a dirty bomb. That was the scenario, and the school district was involved as well. Because the target was the school, and it was. I still remember to this day what I learned and what we learned and what we knew, and had I not been, like had that hands-on experience, I don't think I would have had any concept of what could happen
Yeah.
if you're not prepared. So I agree with Carol 100%. And again, any interagency cooperation that could be done on that is huge.
Even the every 15-minute
I think the
exercises.
50 minutes that we do every
that they
year
have,
is
that's
again,
awesome. So,
interagency.
Yeah.
But I remember this one, it was huge. And of course, the organization of such is huge. But has this community done one since
yeah.
20 years ago, 25 years ago?
Well, let's have that discussion. And I think- And I think we have the right leadership involved, even on the base. I mean, let's have the discussion and let's see if we can do a functioning exercise with every agency that's involved up here
Do it in the winter.
in the winter.
Don't do it in the
It was
summer.
cool. It was cool.
Shoot for the winter, yeah.
Maybe an exercise is real.
But then again, if it's 120 degrees outside, you train in the wintertime.
Yeah.
If the accident happens at 120 degrees and you can't handle it, you still got a problem. So,
No, people go out. People will go out and do. If you practice when it's cooler in the winter, when it's summer, they'll go out and do exactly what they practice doing in the winter during cooler weather. Or that was my experience in Riverside County, working in that area. And from here too. Jim Henley was great at that stuff.
yeah. All right, need a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
That was almost simulcast.
Woo.
Flip